never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. In case you have not looked at your calendar or phone or watch or whatever you look at to find out what day it is a Friday. But not only that, it is Friday the 13th, which to me means absolutely nothing because I've talked about it before here on the channel, but I'm not superstitious at all. But if you are superstitious, today is Friday the 13th. And next, let me say that the beautiful blanket behind me and the shirt I am wearing are almost an exact match. The only two differences are the fact that the blanket is older than the shirt, so the bright purple has slowly but surely over time became a lighter purple, and the blanket has Clemson on the top of it and the shirt does not. But even though Clemson does not play this weekend, I've still got to show my Tiger pride. And don't forget, tomorrow night, 244 Livestock Road, Easton Nolly, Georgia, for SWA Fight Mayor. Doors open at 6. Bell time is 7. 2 cage matches, a casket match, and a dog collar match to go along with a costume contest for the kids. You can't beat that. All that for only $10. But today here on the channel, I'm going to kind of go off course again. If you follow the channel, you know that you never know what I'm going to talk about. Sometimes I preview a certain weekend or a certain game. Sometimes I review games. Sometimes I preview wrestling. Sometimes I review wrestling. But today, I'm going to talk college football, but it's not previewing any games. It's not reviewing any games. And I'm not talking about a certain player or a certain team. Today's main topic is, why are we the way we are? And the reason why I have "we" in quotations is because I'm talking about why are we the way we are as college football fans. And I've talked about it before here on the channel that not all, but about 85 to 90% of college football fans are just never happy. And I don't know why we watch the games, because the whole point of watching the games is supposed to be to escape reality, to have fun, not think about what's going on around you, not worry about what's going on around you, just sit back, watch the games, and have fun. But when we get more stressed out about the game than we do about life, there's really no point in watching the game. And the game is supposed to be fun, but when we're always negative and we're always playing the what-if game, we're taking the fun out of it. But why are we the way we are as college football fans. And let me give a few examples of why I say this. I've talked about it before here on the channel that if you pull for a team and you go 0-12, you say, man, I want to win a game. But then all of a sudden, you win a game, and the next year, you say, man, I want to win 2 games. You win 2 games, then the next year, it's, man, I want to win 3 games. And that's what you do every time your win total increases. You're never satisfied at 1-11. You want that 1-11 to become 2-10. 2-10 is not good enough. You want that 2-10 to become 4-8. That's just how we are. There's never in the history of time been a football team, and there never will be in the history of time, be a football team that wins every game they play, and they win every game they play by 20 or more points. It's just not going to happen. You look at Georgia, there's a pretty doggone good chance that Georgia might win their 3rd straight national title this year. Well, they struggled to beat Auburn, who's terrible, and they struggled to beat South Carolina, who's terrible. And I guarantee you there will be at least one more game this year, if not 2, where Georgia is in a 4th quarter game, down to the wire game, with somebody. But that doesn't mean that they're not the best team in the country. It just means this is what happens. I go back to one year that Clemson won the national title. I'm almost positive that they played Troy that year and beat Troy by 6 or 8 points. I think it was 6. So they struggled to beat Troy. And then they played NC State and beat them, I think, by 3. And NC State missed 2 field goals. And Clemson went on to win the national championship. But for some reason, we as fans think our team is supposed to win every game in blowout fashion, never going to be close. And that's just not reality. But Georgia right now has 2 receivers who transferred there because they weren't happy where they were. Tyler Brown and Troy Stellato are a freshman and a sophomore receiver at Clemson. Tyler Brown is the freshman. Troy Stellato's a sophomore, but he didn't play at all last year due to injuries. And Tyler Brown and Troy Stellato combined have 40 catches. Those 2 Georgia players that transferred there have a combined 36 catches. But nobody talks about that because Georgia is undefeated, and supposedly Clemson's weakness is their wide receivers. But yet they've got 2 receivers that nobody knows anything about that are right now currently playing better than 2 receivers who transferred to Georgia. And speaking of that, Georgia had a receiver that transferred to Texas because he wasn't doing anything, but yet in Texas this year, he's having an outstanding season. But everybody thinks that Clemson's problems could be cured with the transfer portal. And the reason why I'm bringing this up in today's video is because I mentioned in yesterday's video about some of the comments Shane Beamer made earlier in the week at his weekly press conference. And then somebody at work earlier this week asked me what I thought Clemson needed to do to fix their issues. And he was talking about the transfer portal. And I told him, look, the transfer portal is not going to fix Clemson's problems. Clemson's problems are that the offensive line is terrible in run blocking, and we need a leader on the field. And that's not going to be changed by the transfer portal. But for whatever reason, since the transfer portal is now a big-time thing, people think if you have anything wrong, the portal fixes it. And that's not true. Pittsburgh and Virginia Tech were both heavy in the transfer portal in the offseason. And guess what? Both teams are terrible. But we don't talk about that because if we've got an argument to prove a point, we want to bring up the good points to prove our point, but we don't want to bring up the bad points because it makes our point non-existent. And all these folks talk about the transfer portal cures all your ills. Well, Pittsburgh used it, they suck. The Hokies use it, they suck. And I mentioned in the offseason about how good I thought Florida State was going to be this year. And guess what? They're a top 5 football team. They're right where I thought they would be. Top 5, top 10. But Florida State is great because they had success in the transfer portal. Almost every starting player they have is due to the transfer portal. But guess what? Most of those players are not going to be on next year's team, which means next year's team may take a step back. And it could be because they use the portal again and it doesn't work. And it could be that in the offseason, their recruiting takes a hit. But I'm sure they're going to have 4 or 5 players on next year's team that transfer in because that's the day and time we live in college football. But guess what? Next year, if Florida State comes out and they go 8-4, 7-5, you know what their fans are going to say? Man, we've got to stop relying on the transfer portal so much. Right now, you love it because you're winning. But then all of a sudden, if you don't win, you hate it. And we do the same thing all the time with quarterbacks. And I bring this up because James Franklin, the Penn State coach, had some comments kind of similar to this at his press conference earlier in the week, and I have never before agreed with James Franklin and probably never will again. But if you're a fan of a team, especially this year, I hear it all the time with Clemson fans, and I hear it all the time with Georgia fans. I hear Georgia fans nonstop complaining about how Georgia doesn't throw the ball downfield enough. But if we sit back and watch, a lot of times there's no receivers open downfield. The guys downfield are double covered. So if we don't throw the ball downfield, we complain saying, we should throw the ball downfield more. We got to go downfield. But then if our quarterback throws the ball downfield and he throws an interception and we see a replay and there's a receiver 5 yards up the field that's wide open, we say, man, why are we going deep when the check down guy's wide open? So we complain if we don't go downfield, but if we do go downfield and it doesn't work, we complain because we went downfield. That's just how we are as fans. We're always reactionary. We complain about everything when it doesn't work. But then as soon as it does work, we're not happy that it worked. We just move on. But as soon as it doesn't work, we complain like crazy that it doesn't work. Why are we doing that? That's not working. And that's kind of what James Franklin was saying, because basically in his press conference he was talking about players, not just the quarterback, but players not doing things that they're not supposed to do. For example, the quarterback, as I just said, most coaches teach their quarterbacks don't throw into double coverage. If there's nobody downfield open, use the check down, go underneath. But if you're watching your team play and it's late in the game and you think you've got to move the ball, you want to go downfield. And your quarterback goes downfield and you get mad at him. And what Franklin was saying was, if my quarterback doesn't throw in the double coverage, I'm not going to fuss at him because I coach him all the time not to throw in the double coverage. So why am I going to fuss at you for not doing what I tell you not to do? Another example is Iowa, and I've mentioned Iowa here on the channel numerous times. Iowa's 5-1 this year, and they've got the worst offense in the country, and it's not close. Their offense is putrid. But guess what? They're 5-1. But their fans are complaining because their offense sucks. And don't get me wrong, it sucks. There's no denying it. There's no defending it. It sucks. It's terrible. It's awful. It's atrocious. It's pitiful. It's horrible. But they're 5-1. If they were dumb enough to fire Kirk Ferentz and bring in a new offensive play caller, their offense might get better, but guess what? The defense gets worse. Then all of a sudden, through 6 games, instead of 5-1, they're 4-2 or 3-3, and then their fans are saying, man, what's wrong with us? Our defense is terrible. When I was growing up, it was always a win is a win. Whether you win the game 3-2 or you win the game 49-47, a win is a win. But those days are gone. Because of social media nowadays, It just seems like you cannot make fans happy. It doesn't matter what you do, they're going to complain. And you look at Colorado this year. Colorado is going to be a 6-win team, maybe. They're average, but for them, 6 wins is a pretty good season. But every single player on their roster is a transfer player. That's not sustainable. You can't bring in 80 transfer players every single year. You're going to eventually have to develop players. You're going to eventually have to do some kind of recruiting. You ain't got to be top 10 if you're Colorado, but you've got to recruit somebody. You can't have 80 transfer players every year. But for now, people love it because Colorado, being average, is talk of the town. But guess what? If Colorado had 80 transfer players and they were 1-5 right now, you'd hear the same folks saying, well, you know, Colorado's losing because it's transfer players. You know, you can't build a camaraderie with your team when nobody on the team knows each other because none of them were there last year. So when you win, it's a great thing. When you lose, it's a terrible thing. When the reality of it is, it's somewhere in between. And as I said, I bring this stuff up because I was asked earlier in the week about Clemson's problems and asked about the transfer portal, and the transfer portal would not fix Clemson's issues. And Dabo has used the transfer portal before, and he'll use it again when he has to. But you see some teams have 15 linebackers, and all of a sudden a linebacker goes in the portal, and the head coach will chase that player and bring him on campus just to say, hey, man, we got so-and-so. But if you've got 15 linebackers, there is no sense in adding a 16th linebacker. He's not going to play. It's pointless. It's stupid. So Dabo's philosophy is, if it's a position that I need, I'll go and try to get the guy. But I'm not going to go and get the guy just for the sake of saying, hey, I got that guy. If I don't need him, I'm not going to get him. And Clemson's problems would not be fixed with the transfer portal. But this day and time, because of the transfer portal being the way it is, anytime any team has a problem now, we want to say the portal's going to fix it. And that's not the case. You just don't know. It could help. It could hurt. For Pittsburgh this year, it didn't help at all. For the Hokies this year, it didn't help at all. But for Colorado and Florida State, it helped. That's 4 teams, and that's 2 scenarios where it worked and 2 scenarios where it didn't work. So that tells you got a 50-50 chance of the transfer portal working. So we can't just assume because our team needs this and our team needs that, that the portal is the answer. That's not the case. And that's basically what Beamer was saying earlier in the week at his press conference when he was talking about how, you know, the people behind the scenes, like the AD and the president, you know, their expectations aren't the same as the fan base. Because if we used the fans' point of view and the fans' perspective, there would never be no coach in the history of time to coach more than 1 season. Because we as fans, every time our team has a losing season or a bad game, we want to fire the coach. And we would have a different coach every single year because the players and the coaching staff are humans. They make mistakes. They're going to mess up. Just like the referees, they're going to mess up. Everybody on that field is a human being. So everybody on that field is going to mess up. But for some reason, we as fans, every time our team loses a game, we got to fire the coaching staff. Every time we have a bad season, we got to fire the coaching staff. And you look around at the country and you look at how many teams have that philosophy where every time their team has a bad year or a bad 2 years, they fire the coach. And you've got some teams that in a 30-year stretch have 15 head coaches. You know what that tells you? Firing the coach ain't the right answer, but that's how we are. All of our problems are going to be fixed by firing that coach. Any problem we have, we got to fire that coach. And that's just how we are. We can't just sit back, watch the game, and enjoy the game, we've got to complain and bicker and whine about it. And these kind of things didn't happen until social media came along. Because I can distinctly remember growing up as a Clemson fan when I was in middle school and high school, and Clemson was a 3 or 4 win team, and then all of a sudden they were a 7 or 8 win team, and for about 10 to 12 years, that's what they were. They were 6-5 or 7-4 when it was an 11 game season, and they were 7-5, 8-4 when it became a 12 game season. But at 6-5 or 7-5 or 8-4, the fans were okay. They were happy. It was fine. But social media wasn't like it is now. Nowadays, you can be 15-0 and win the national championship and win every game by 40 points, and the fans still say, well, how come we didn't do this? Why didn't we do that? And it's bad because you see so many players now and so many coaches that get death threats on social media because the coach made a bad call, or because the player dropped a pass, because the player missed a kick. And it shouldn't be that way. If you get so upset and so uptight because your team lost a game that you want to kill somebody, quit watching the game. At the end of the day, college football is great. It's great to watch, but life goes on. It's just a game. Why can't we just sit back and enjoy it? If we win, great. If we lose, great. Guess what? Either way, at the end of the day, we're going to go to bed and wake up the next morning. There's just no sense in taking all the fun and out of the joy and all the excitement out of it because our team didn't do a play or a series or a quarter the way we wanted. So today's main topic is, why are we the way we are about college football? Any thoughts on this? As always, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Today's dad joke is more of a thinking question, but think about this. Do you think the guy that coined the term one-hit wonder ever coined any other phrases? And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.